Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
James, Brenden, listener, hello. How are you? I'm well. Raining again. I don't like it. It's spring, right? We should stop all this nonsense. Hopefully, the dry sunshine is on the horizon. But I'm doing good. How are you guys?
I think I'm good. And of course, we're joined by Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I'm doing good. Nothing special to report. Another day in the life, I guess. Get to talk to you two.
A
I don't
day
like
in the
Rather
life?
be anywhere else.
I don't like the upside down Giants hat. Explain what that is.
It just, I don't know. I went on a little hat kick recently and decided I need a couple new hats. So I got some new ones. I don't think that it's meant to be a jab at the Giants at all.
So
I
you
don't
saw
know.
that and you're like, that speaks to me. I'm wearing that.
I saw it online and I liked it. Yep.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure KC has a couple upside down logo hats. It's just a thing. It's just a
Who are we
thing.
talking about? Oh, Kenny Caraway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't
Maybe.
really I'll wear whatever when it comes to baseball logos. So
Got you.
I will. Actually, I don't wear a lot of team stuff. I have my, my crazy beer hats, like the, yeah, I wear my Pabst Blue Ribbon hat all the time, and I think I have a Natty Boy hat. Anyway, yeah. Sean, all he wears is Hurley hats. How many of those do you have, Sean?
Enough. And, and it's not a competition. I will say, like I was mentioning, I was like, if anyone's ever seen The Last Castle, which Brenden has not, but on the upside down flag, I think it was a sign of anarchy, and it takes place in a prison, and they raise the flag, and it's upside down. It's a interesting movie. Robert
So
Redford, James
he wants
Gandolfini.
anarchy for the San Francisco Giants.
I think that's what and he might have it because this team's probably not going to be very good this year. But I know this is the Kings beat, not the Giants beat. So
Yeah.
not that that's stopped us before.
No, we talk about whatever we want, Sean. We do what we
Yeah.
want. We
It's
do
our
what we
goddamn
want.
Show.
we get 5 minutes of free talk every
That's
episode.
right. Every episode. Okay, let's get to the business stuff. If you are watching on YouTube and you don't mind, could you give us a thumbs up? If you're not a subscriber here to the Kings Beat YouTube channel, then you might as well do that too. And then we have tomorrow is Off the Record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour part 12. What do we say? National Voice.
National Voice, yeah.
National Voice with the great Sam Amick. I think it's
Great.
going to be a great conversation. Yes, you always say that. Yes, it is the great Sam Amick.
I don't call anyone great.
Well, I'm excited to have Sam on because, again, Sam was the beat writer the last time the Kings made the playoffs. And so he's watched this thing unwind and then somehow find its way again. And I think it'll be a great conversation. If you haven't been to a happy hour before, they're an absolute blast. We just hang out and BS for I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours. We take questions, we drink, we tell crazy stories that we probably shouldn't. It's all off the record. We do not record them. You cannot watch them later. But they are sort of the staple of the King's Beat. So super
And
fun.
we're gonna get to the bottom of bathroom etiquette. We're going to talk about the
snappity.
last time the Kings made the playoffs, which I also was covering the team still. So Sam and I can talk about our adventures on the Riverwalk. There were a few. And yeah, man, should be a fun time.
Yeah.
Why do we need to talk about bathroom etiquette? What's going on here?
Oh, we do. We do.
Oh.
After I learned what I learned,
Okay,
it's going to be
you
discussed.
say so. I guess people will find out.
People will find out. Okay, in order to get the link to the happy hour, you have to be a premium subscriber to the King's Beat. We are growing like crazy. Last happy hour, we had 90 plus people in the Zoom call at all times. So that was wild, and that was with Aileen Voisin. I expect that many or more just because of the growth that we've had over the last couple of months. As this thing is kind of taken off, and the Kings continue to stack wins and get better and do all that stuff. So become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, or down below if you're watching on YouTube, you can you can find your way there. There's also other things down there if you're interested in sponsoring the Kings Beat podcast, like we have with Prize Picks. You can do that as well. And there's also a link to the GoFundMe for my friends up here in the Lake of the Pines area that could use some assistance. Okay, let's get to the last two games. And the Sacramento Kings rattle off 3 in a row on the road. They look like world beaters. They go into Utah. There's no Lauri Markkanen. There's no, I don't know who else was missing.
Jordan Clarkson was out.
Colin Sexton.
Sexton.
Yeah.
And they kind of got thumped. What were your initial thoughts, you guys, on what you saw from the Utah game and why the Kings look like they're stuck in mud?
Well, my thoughts would be last game of a road trip. Look, a lot of this is just kind of catching up on them. That first game back was 5-7, and I know this team doesn't want to make excuses for being tired or losing legs or just kind of coasting a little bit as they approach a couple days off and a practice day before they go into the next 3 home games of the 5 remaining. I'm not shocked by any of those things of dropping either of those games, and I'm certainly not concerned. I think you look at the Utah game. I think they gave it all they had. Utah was a team that was kind of licking their chops and ready for them, and I think Boston was much of the same. So it is fun because it's eerily familiar to Warriors fans in a way, because when you're looking at the social media comments, which you should never do, but when you do and you start kind of gauging what people are saying on social media, the highs are highs and the lows are very lows. And it's like guys, they haven't lost 3 straight games since November. If they drop the game to Phoenix on Friday, there's no cause for concern. And I think they went into that road trip and played very, very well. I think it ended in a way that was about what you might have expected, but that's okay, because oftentimes we come to expect games like that, and more times than not, they're kind of surprising us with the effort that they put forth, and oftentimes they end up winning a game that maybe they shouldn't. And I'm not saying that the Utah game was a game they shouldn't have won, but so often we see games where the effort isn't there, the results aren't there, and sometimes they have a knack for just pulling it out. In those 2 games, they haven't been. And I think the Boston game was very, very, very familiar to the game we saw against Milwaukee, only with circumstances being 5th game in 7 nights. And while they won't make excuses, I will, because I thought they looked dog-ass tired.
They definitely did. 5th game in 7 nights and in 4 different time zones. Like, they traveled everywhere nonstop. I had never heard of anything like 5 games in 7 nights. I don't know about you guys, would know better than me, but I thought that Utah game, like, sometimes you just have a stinker of a quarter, and I think they did an okay job of attempting to fight back. I think that once shots started to not fall, that a couple people were maybe trying to do a little bit too much and trying to make it all up, and then they really weren't able to slow down Utah on the other end, which was the more concerning thing to me. I think if you're able to get a few more stops, you can get out in transition, where Sacramento really excels. But they were able to bring it back. I actually thought the second, third quarter specifically of De'Aaron Fox was some of the best basketball we've seen him play. And I guess maybe there's other days you can look at with different caliber of opponents, but he seemingly willed that team back into having a chance against Utah with some help from Harrison Barnes in that second quarter, help from Keegan Murray in that third quarter. But I think that Utah played better than I expected, and apparently Walker Kessler is the next great big in this league, because he did a great job. He actually, I'm being a little over the top, obviously, but I was really impressed with the job he did on Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, he's fun, and Sabonis usually dominates the big stick figure guys, but he's a little different. Like Walker Kessler, I mean, he was so good in college. What he averaged, like 6.5 blocks a game in college. I mean, he was absolutely crazy. When we look at the Utah game, those things happen. Again, it's one of those. where you might have been looking ahead a little bit. At the beginning of the season, like I thought that, well, that's clearly a schedule loss if we're looking at the Boston game the next day, just because of all the time zone changes and the travel. I think it's interesting that this team doesn't, like, they want no part of the discussion that they had played 5 games in 7 nights. And so, again, I thought Utah, they just fell flat. And that happens sometimes. And they're exhausted. We're late in the season. They're missing Kevin Huerter. Like, everything just kind of lined up to lose. And that happens. And then, like, when you guys, when we're watching the Boston game last night, like, I thought through the first, like, 22 minutes, 23 minutes, and, like, 30 seconds, I thought it was pretty good basketball. And then I thought the officiating was horrible. And then the officiating got even worse in that, like, final 30 seconds of the second quarter where they called 4 fouls on the Kings. And it just felt like the entire night, like, there was no rhythm to the game because the officials were weird. And I'm not going to put the loss on the officials because I think the Celtics are a better team. They were also well rested. The Kings were not. They were, again, the 5th game in 7 days. And they just flown in from Utah, where Boston had been hanging out for 2 days. And I don't know where they were hanging out, but they had plenty of time to, like, relax and get ready. Brenden, was it you that asked me about why did the NBA schedule it that way? Because Boston didn't play the next day, why didn't they just push it back?
I think it was Frank that pointed that out. Yeah, why couldn't the game been today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. To be honest, I don't think the outcome would have been different. And for the Kings at this point, I kind of look at Friday's game as like one of the biggest games that they've had in, like, a decade and a half. And they need to come out and, like, be really focused. So I'd almost rather have them lose against, the Celtics on a Wednesday, take 2 days off, or what day is it? On a Tuesday, and then take 2 days off, and then have that time to prepare for the Suns. They don't want to make the excuse, like Sean said, but it's just sitting there. Those guys were exhausted. They had no legs. They missed all of their 3-point shots in the early fourth quarter. Like, they had no way to come back in the game because they were too tired. And there's no shame in that, but I also like that this team doesn't want to make excuses about things.
Yeah, it's refreshing. To your point about, just the way they played, first of all, they were at a frenetic pace. Scoring was just abundant. There wasn't much defense for either team through the first quarter, really. I agree with you, James. In the second quarter, I thought is where officiating got a little out of hand. Some questionable calls and some rather ticky-tack things. But
dude, it was 16 seconds into the game they called Kessler Edwards for a foul that didn't look like a foul.
It looked like a foul to me. Yeah. No, it was. I've gone back and watched it again last night. Wanted to particularly look at the second and third quarters again. And the third quarter, to me, is just where this team came out of halftime and they just had nothing. And they just kind of got curb stomped. They made it. I thought they were fortunate to make it as close, because this thing was heading to over 20-point deficit heading into the fourth. And I thought that they did a nice job of making it a 15-point game heading into the fourth. And they just came out with nothing. They didn't have anything. So it's fine. And again, I don't feel as strongly about the Celtics as I do the Bucks, where, they could probably play 8 times out of 10 and they'd probably lose all but 2 of them. Or they could play 10 times and lose 8 out of 10. I feel like the Celtics could be a little bit a matchup that I'd want to see a little bit more of. I just think that the Bucks, they've got no answer for. I do feel also the Celtics made incredible adjustments throughout the game. I mean, Domas was such he's been a force all year. I thought he was I thought he was their best go-to player throughout that first half, and then they threw a bunch of different looks at him, kind of frustrated him. As he mentioned after the game, going small, they really made them uncomfortable, I thought, the Kings, and he pointed that out, and the Kings just did nothing to combat that. And we were talking, James, you and I were talking to Malik Monk afterwards, and I think it was your question, saying, like, how do you combat that type of experience? He said, with physicality. And they, I think, have shown moments in the season where they can be a physical team. that sometimes they like to show the ability to punch first, although it doesn't always go that way. But they certainly don't wilt when punched first more times than not. And I just thought last night was just the recipe was right, and they showed nothing. And I thought, Malik, who really didn't have much of a good game at all, and it was one of those ones where I even point out to you, it's like, this is what I'm talking about, where when he's a zero factor, this team just looks lost and just doesn't look like themselves and really have to battle to win games. And that fourth quarter, he stepped it up. I mean, he was their defense in the fourth quarter. Might have been a little bit of hollow minutes at one point, but he tried to bring them back. But he was really the only one there that had any spark to him. He made pretty much every play on defense. 2 steals, I believe it was. He had a block. They just couldn't convert on the other end. I thought the Celtics did a really brilliant job. I mean, you saw that moment where it's Keegan Murray, and rather than dump off, he goes up for that lay-in. I think it was him and Barnes, if I'm not mistaken, and he misses that layup. They just, it just happens. They just didn't have it. I mean, so many of the misses were off the front of the rim. Terrence Davis airballs a 3. I mean, offensively, they just didn't look like themselves either. So kudos to the Celtics. They were kind of lying in wait. One of those schedule wins for sure. And you move on. I think they're going to really benefit from this 2 days off, a practice, and then some home cooking. So I think, if you can get Kevin Huerter right, you'll be right where you want to be.
I think we've said it a couple times. To me, since the New York game, it feels like physicality has been such a theme for this team, and they've been on both sides of it, and a lot of physicality is effort and just tiring. And I think that, again, that 5 and 7 absolutely factors in. And also Boston has a deep team. I think that, yes, they have been struggling post All-Star break, but they just got Robert Williams back, and he did get in some foul trouble there. But I think just the size difference that Sacramento was up against stood out so much to me. Like, there's a time where the lineup is Malcolm Brogdon, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and Robert Williams. And Sacramento is rolling out De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. Like, Jason Tatum is as tall as Domantas Sabonis. The Celtics have 3 players out there as tall as Sacramento's center. And I think that size difference really factored in there. And just being able to switch everything, they really were pressuring Domas when he had the ball. It's not to take away his threat of a mid-range or anything like that, but just so he can't freely play make. And I think that the Celtics did a good job in that. I will say the one guy that popped to me defensively for Sacramento was Davion Mitchell. I thought that he did a great job covering, but covering up, I feel like, to that extent is new. Like, covering what Jaylen Brown 6'6", I think he's listed at. And Davion is listed as 6'2". I don't know that he's actually 6'2".
No.
Yeah. Being able to guard up like that, I thought was really impressive for Davion. Coach spoke pretty glowingly of him post-game. And Davion had a good night shooting the ball as well. He had 10 of his 13 in that second quarter and then kind of slowed down after the fact. But if you had one more guy, like if Kessler Edwards wasn't dealing with foul trouble, or if Harrison Barnes maybe gave you a little bit more, maybe it's more of a competition. But I thought the size difference between these two teams really stood out to me.
Yeah, I'll also, like, Sean, you brought up Monk on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, he was totally out of sync. And it was, to me, it was a mess. And then we get to the fourth quarter, and I think we're all waiting, like, okay, will De'Aaron Fox make a run here? Will he, like, try to get this thing close? And then he kept passing the ball to Malik. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
what are you doing?
He was passing it to everybody. I mean, he had Davion, he had Keegan. I mean, Fox was moving the ball.
He was coming up the court, though. He was coming up the court and flipping it to the other side and, like, taking the ball out of his own hands. Like, I think he only took 4 shots in the fourth. Like, if he's going to be that guy, he's got to... To me, it felt like one of the few games where he didn't actually play up in the fourth. And it kind of dawned on me that, like, some of the times that we do see him kind of take a step back, it's when he's playing with Malik. And so sometimes they're fun and they're going up and down the court and they're doing all these crazy things and it's fun. But a lot of times he will give the ball to Malik and, like, go ahead and do your thing. And that just didn't feel like a game where, number one, Malik had it because he didn't, but also where Fox should have been acquiescing to someone else. And so, like, I was just kind of surprised. It's really raining out of nowhere here, like really, really hard. So I don't know if it was raining a lot down where you guys are at, but it was kind of a quiet day, and now it's not. Anyway, like, I thought that this was one of those games where Fox, like, you were hoping that Fox would become Fox and step up to the challenge, but everyone was exhausted. He was exhausted. He was really good from three early on. Everyone else lost their 3-point shot along the way. And you could also tell he was really frustrated by the loss, which I think has more to do with the fact that, like, Jason Tatum and him know each other really well. And, like, no one likes to lose 2 games in a row, but it just felt like Fox was a little short, like, angry with us after the game. Not that he was, like, out of sorts or anything. It just seemed like he wasn't himself after that one.
I think he just wanted to get the hell out of there. He only
Yeah.
took 11 shots on the game. Malik was 1 of 7. I didn't think that Malik went gunning. I think Fox was literally just, hey guys, let's get everyone going here. And you're right. What he didn't do the typical fourth quarter Fox as we've grown to expect. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that we got to a point in the game where, like, it's usually not the entire fourth. I feel like it's the last, like, 8 minutes, 7 minutes, and by the time we hit 6, it was like, Rashawn, Mezzi, let's get everybody out there. So I think there's a little bit of that. And he said before that, like, size is one of the things that bothers him. And
bothers the whole team.
Right.
I mean, it just it takes them all out of sorts. This isn't a very long team, and when they go up against teams that are long and experienced, and you can just look no further than Milwaukee, Boston, and Philly. Those are 3 teams that kind of have some ownage on this team.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to, at this point, because it's Wednesday and not Tuesday, but we'll do Wednesday overreactions. I think that, like, hiding inside of the fact that this team was exhausted and everything else was the fact that on Monday, the Jazz ran a zone against the Kings, and the Kings had a bunch of problems. And then when they faced the Celtics switched everything the entire game, and the Kings had problems. Like, are we seeing teams figure some of the things out that the Kings are doing? Or is it, like, Herter's absence is impacting this team pretty heavily? Or is it, like, just the exhaustion? I guess, and how much do you think that they can grow through these struggles here? Because this is what teams are going to throw at them in the playoffs for sure.
I would say that's probably an overreaction. It certainly worked, and I think there are reasons as to what we've kind of pinpointed some maybe concerns and causes for that. But I think I'd like to see a little bit more, see how the Kings react to Utah on Saturday. You're going to see a different Phoenix team on Friday as well than you've seen just a few weeks ago. So I think that seeing those 2 games will be a nice barometer to have something to compare to in these final 2 games that we've seen, and really just going forward. How do they close out the homestand? They obviously only have 10 games remaining, I believe.
Yeah.
Nice little split with 5-5. So I think it's 5-5. So it'll be nice to see how this thing wraps up. And again, even if they're stumbling into the postseason, I'm really not concerned. To me, I think the biggest hope is that you can go in healthy, because you're looking around, man. Look what just happened in LA with Paul George just yesterday. You just saw Kyrie leave with a boot in Dallas the other day. Luka Doncic just came back. He's going to go up against the Warriors tonight. But just the benefit of health is so important for any team as you go into the postseason. And there's a lot of teams that are scuffling right now. So the Kings still have the benefit of health. I don't think it's as simple as teams figuring them out. And I think, honestly, what's the one constant that you've seen throughout this time? We talked about it. 5 games in 7 nights doesn't lead to much practice time. And Mike Brown being such the identifier of the little things, details, he needs that moment again to kind of right the ship, so to speak. So Getting some of these guys back will be a good thing. I still don't think Trey Lyles is right, and I think he'll benefit from having a nice day off and a practice as well, and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, the Kings need 30 good Poplitises going into the postseason.
Wrong. Poplitius.
Did I get it wrong? Poplitus?
Poplitius.
Poplitius. Damn,
Poplitius.
I tried. Said confidently and everything. I really thought I had that one. No, I mean, I think the Utah game, like sometimes that just happens. To me, it's really that first quarter. And then I guess the closing moments, they could have done better defensively. And then Boston, maybe like Boston, I see them in Milwaukee somewhat similarly as teams with a lot of size, good at protecting the paint. But there's just not many teams that can even like replicate that formula. You know, like if that is a formula to beat the Kings, who else can do that? And specifically in the West, like the Clippers, maybe depending on their health.
Crazy though. Like you bring that up, and I think the biggest thing I'm looking at is.
Well, I think Minnesota can replicate. I mean, they've got a lot of length on that team.
Yeah, but maybe
they don't. They scare me from that standpoint. And I mean, you've seen it. They played in some pretty weird games with the Kings already. I don't like Minnesota. I think they're a overrated, if at all, team, and I don't think they're very smart. But they're long, and they can give some problems.
I see you there, but like when we're looking at, I think this is sort of the next like discussion. Like first of all, the Kings finished the last 10 games. They're all against Western Conference opponents, all of them, and 6 of them are against teams with losing records. One is I think Dallas is 500, and one is the Warriors, who are a game over 500. So of their final 10 games, the only 2 that are like you would consider cream of the crop Western Conference opponents, if you're the Kings and you're a 3 seed, is the Suns on Friday and then the Nuggets last game of the season. So their like strength of schedule has shifted completely. They have the 22nd most difficult strength of schedule from here on out. It's like a 484 win percentage against. They still have 2 games against like Portland that's kind of given up the ghost. They've got a game against the Spurs. They have some opportunities here to actually finish strong. And even if you rest some guys like and you don't play them as heavy minutes, you still can. I think you can win a bunch of games without like going all out. But when I look at the Eastern Conference and particularly the Celtics, the 76ers, who have been even better offensively than the Kings have been since the All-Star break, and the Bucks, man, the East just feels so much better than the West. Like, I know we should fear them when you're looking at playoff matches and you're doing all this stuff, but is there one team that you're like, oh, that is just, at this point, is such a ridiculously bad matchup for the Kings in the first round, the second round? You're like, like they're kind of all, what's that?
I was gonna say, well, it depends on how you feel about the Warriors, because if the playoffs were to start today and let's say they finish, I mean, my goodness, it'd be a Warriors Kings playoff series. Sign me up for it. I'd love to see it. But are you gonna? I don't think that like teams are what they are at this point. Like I don't think anyone's gonna look at the Warriors and go they're gonna flip a switch. But how does playoff experience?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah,
and to be honest, that would frighten me. It would. But then again, I kind of like having a team. It's kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth, because there is something to having a team that doesn't know they're not supposed to be there. The Kings are supposed to be there based on the way they've played. That's not what I mean. But having a team that doesn't have that experience is almost a benefit, because there's a freedom that comes along with that. You just hope that there's no pucker factor.
Yeah, that, and like I would say, like the Kings this season, they're 1-1 against Denver. They're 2-2 against Memphis. They're 1-2 against the Suns. They're 3-1 against the Clippers. That's the top 5 with them, right? Like they've hung tough. Now we get to these other 3 beasts in the East, and what are they, 0-6? They're 0-6 against those teams, and all of those teams have a player that you just can't match up with. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I do know what it is. Like
those top
Joel
3
Embiid,
have about 2 of them.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum are all 3 very, very good to outstanding, great legends type stuff. I think that like Tatum is probably more defensible than the other two, and you can probably find matchups, but he's really difficult, and he gets a benefit of the doubt like crazy. That guy gets a lot of whistles. Anyway, like I was just looking at it, I'm like, against the Western Conference opponents that the Kings are going to face, they should never be worried about, oh, like, man, well, if you get to the finals, you're going to get your ass kicked. It's like, okay, that should be perfectly fine with the Kings. It's like
good problems to have.
That would be a great problem to have. Hey, look, we made it to the finals. Ain't got our ass kicked. Like, who cares, right? That would be impressive.
I'd be pretty surprised if the East doesn't win it. Even if it was like Cleveland. I think Cleveland is really good. I don't think that Cleveland comes out of those 4 teams, but Cleveland has a huge size advantage on a lot of different teams as well, specifically in the Western Conference. But to answer your question of like, who's the toughest for the Kings, it kind of spoils one of my factor caps. One of them was the Phoenix Suns are the worst matchup for Sacramento in the postseason.
Oh.
And it's, spoiler alert for me, it's a fact. And it's Kevin Durant. And who's the best answer for Devin Booker? Before it was Kessler Edwards. Are we sure that Kessler Edwards can play in the playoffs?
No, I'm not even convinced he can play in the NBA.
Damn, Sean.
I mean, he's had some nice moments, but I mean, a few games does not make a basketball player, guys. So
agreed.
It's I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm just answering the question.
Casey looked good at the beginning of the year.
Right, he was a starter.
Yep.
He started in the preseason.
I think it like to defend what Sean is saying here, because he was brought in as a guy who they got money to take on. Like, they got like a couple of $1 million to not only pay his salary, but to like some extra cash to take him on as a player. And that's not to disparage who he is. He's actually, I think he's played really well. I think defensively, he's been really, really good. But like, we have, like, if he started with this team at the beginning of the year and we had a sample size of 60 games, 70 games at this point, with him being like a major player, then that's one thing. But like, he's kind of like found money at this point. He's kind of like you're pulling your laundry out of the dryer and a 20 falls out. You're like, found a 20. And then you realize that a 20 doesn't get you anywhere now, but like, at least you found a 20. And so you have him for a little bit of
this. Man.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying, though, right? Like, I don't trust that he's going to play major minutes just like I don't trust that Terrence Davis is going to play major minutes. I think we're going to see like Malik Monk, Trey Lyles, and Davion Mitchell off the bench. And that's your 8-man.
And it's depending upon how the series goes, right? Like, your game 1, let's say you lose game 1. You could see something completely different in an adjustment for game 2, right?
Yeah.
So but if you win game 1, do you try to replicate? Like, does the opposition throw something completely different? Like, the way use Boston as an example in this last game, the way they went small for a team that's just killing you with length, we're going to throw smaller guys at Domantas Sabonis. Someone like Jason Tatum, like, it was funny, man. I had to go back and watch a few of those calls because Tatum is such a brilliant ISO player. He's Kevin Martin-esque in the way he can draw a foul, but he can shoot over you as well. Like, he draws the foul, swing the arm, get somebody to touch you on the wrist, on the forearm. You got yourself a foul. Yeah, I mean, he's brilliant. He's brilliant at it. It's not quite James Harden, because James Harden uses a little bit more deception, but it's almost more straightforward. It's like, no, you got me. And it sucks because he's so big, He's such a big dude that is so multi-talented offensively that, yeah, there's not many teams that can stop. There's probably nobody that can stop him.
Where did he go to college?
That's a Duke Blue Devil, buddy.
Yeah, I know, Sean.
That has nothing to do with it. How dare you?
I still like, well, Brenden, your point, like why don't we do the factor cap? Like, let's discuss that.
The Phoenix Suns are the worst matchup for Sacramento in the postseason. In the Western Conference, obviously. Fact or cap?
One more time.
The Phoenix Suns,
make sure I heard that right,
are the worst matchup for Sacramento in the postseason. Fact or cap? Only the West.
I'm gonna say that is cap. And you know why? They haven't been together long enough. They haven't played together long enough. Like, you threw KD on that team. They're already a good team. They've had some moments. I don't think they're a tremendously coached team by any means. But
Really?
I'm not the biggest Monty Williams fan, but I will say, I think I'd probably look at Denver a little bit more closely. I think Memphis would be a little bit of a tougher matchup, both of those teams. I'd rather see Phoenix than either one of those teams as it stands right now. Now, if you get into a playoff series and you're seeing Phoenix in the second, or dare I even say, farther along than that, and you've seen them play ridiculously well together, certainly that could change. But just because we haven't seen it yet, I fear Denver and Memphis a little bit more.
Yeah, so I made this point the other day. I don't think it was here though. Like the way it's set up, one plays 8, and then the second round is one whoever makes it, but like one would play 4 in the second round, right? So I think the fact that as of right now, and the Paul George injury like changes this a little bit, because like if I'm looking at the Western Conference, the 3 teams I don't want to face are Denver, the Suns, and the Clippers. Like those are the 3 teams that I would like elevate and say I think if there's going to be someone who represents the West, it's going to be them. Now that's not to take anything away from Memphis. Memphis is just freaking hot mess, right? That team can't, like, they have all kinds of trouble, and they still don't have like Steven Adams back and Jaws coming back tonight, but like
they still kind of win, and they're still super competitive and very physical.
They are, but they also they lost Brandon Clark. The Kings are 2-2 against them this season.
They just got Ja Morant back. They're getting Ja Morant back today.
No, I know. So like I think that's going to be a really good team. But my point was that
right.
If somehow the Kings are the 2 or the 3, which they're going to be either the 2 or the 3, most likely the 3 because they're a game and a half back, but the 2 or the 3. That means that if you somehow make it to the second round, you're going to play the Grizzlies. And of the teams that are out there, I would prefer to play the Grizzlies over any one of Denver, Clippers, or the Suns. And then the fact that if you somehow get to the Western Conference Finals, like only one of those teams will be left. And I'm not saying that the Kings are going to get to the Western Conference Finals. I'm just saying that like the way that the playoff structure sets up, I think is more advantageous to the Kings because Memphis is not as experienced and they don't really know who they are, and they've had all kinds of chaos and weirdness and like a rough, weird season. That doesn't mean that they won't just like run over the Kings. They could very well just run over the Kings in a 7-game series. But I think Kevin Durant on the Suns, if they're healthy, like it's very possible they just smoke you.
Yeah, it very much could be. I just mean that just because we haven't seen it yet, I don't know that it can come together as quickly as they'd like. But I will say this: you mentioned the Clippers, and I think that's interesting too, because obviously they're a team that's going to stumble into the playoffs with the Paul George thing, and I feel like I don't think I've seen them right for more than 2 weeks this season, which concerns me.
The last 3 seasons, it feels like.
No, but I would say this season more so than ever. Even if you knew going in that you weren't going to have Kawhi on second nights, or at least in the back-to-back scenarios, whether he's missing the first or the second game. But I feel like even when they've been about what you expect them to be, it still hasn't been impressive in terms of sustaining some level of success or dominance, or what to expect from a night-in, night-out basis. I mean, Ty Lue, I feel bad for him. I really do, because he's such a brilliant in-game coach, making adjustments. And I think he walks into his locker room every day and goes, I don't know what we got. I have no idea what to expect from my team. And it just puts that team on their heels more so than not throughout the course of the season. They scare me a little bit, but at this point, they don't scare me like they once did.
And they're 2 games out of 12th in the loss column.
And if Paul George comes back, I mean, fortunately that was a sprained knee.
That's
I'm glad that it wasn't worse. But how long does that take to get him right again? I know it's Paul George and he's a hell of a player, but who knows?
Yeah, that was freakishly scary.
Like at least with Memphis, when Memphis you can take Ja Morant away. They showed the ability last year, and even this year when Ja's not there, they still win. They still, can play their brand of basketball and still be a problem in the West. And
It
I
took a
don't think it
long time
was
for them to make the adjustment without Steven Adams, though.
100%. And that's what I was going to say. I think this year was a lot
Yeah.
different without having a force like Steven Adams there. But with the strides that, Jaren Jackson Jr. has made, boy, I granted you want to see that with Steven Adams as well, but that team still frightens me. I think they're a really good coach team. I think they're deep. I like some of the pieces they added. Could be fun.
Brenden, what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any second round matchup where Sacramento is going to be favored, really. And I think there's a lot of first round matchups where they're probably not favored. And I think that's just the reality of lacking the postseason experience. And the teams that you guys are going through, like Phoenix, LA, you could throw Golden State in there as well, like have this just ridiculous amount of that postseason experience. They have players that have been there and done that. And I think that can be intimidating. I also think that, I don't know, the Kings are good enough on any given night to come out on top. The offense is ridiculous. We've seen them be able to lock up in fourth quarters. And it's just like, okay, can you do that for longer? And the answer has been no. And I don't expect it to be yes, like to the extent that they do in the fourth quarter for the entire game. But I don't know, man, like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker scare me. I heard an interesting point even on I think it was Low Post podcast. It's like they don't have any time to mesh, but that also means that no other teams have any time to prep for what that looks like, which is an interesting other side of it. And I think that Kevin Durant is probably the most plug and play superstar in the league. I think you saw that. It was only 3 games he got to play with them, but it was just instantly it works. And I think that Devin Booker is a problem there. Denver is in an interesting slump to me right now. And that's based on their own standards. But their games recently have felt somewhat similar to how Sacramento's been playing, where it's all on offense. And they've just taken a total slide down on the defensive end. And there's nothing to point to. It's not like some injury that's making it happen or some sort of unavailability. So if you're getting into a shootout with the team, then I don't know. I'm not going to favor Sacramento, of course, in that matchup, but Phoenix is the one to me because specifically, obviously Kevin Durant. And I think he's shown a history of coming back from injuries and being pretty healthy pretty quick and looking like himself without needing too much time. And Devin Booker also, they start the game with Keegan Murray on Devin Booker. Don't love that matchup. And then end up going to Kessler Edwards, who we already kind of covered that. So there's not exactly a favorable matchup in here in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also going to point out the play devil's advocate. I don't think there are a lot of teams that while they'll say yeah, we want the Kings because they're inexperienced, they don't want the Kings that the Kings have beat all of these teams. They've run over most of these teams in the Western Conference. So yeah, it's different in the postseason, but I like that the Kings came out, went 11-2 to start after the post All-Star break season here. They've played really well. They're the team who's ramped up where a lot of other teams haven't. And so I'm intrigued by it. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a really again, Friday, we don't know if DeAndre Ayton will play, but that is probably going to be the biggest game in Sacramento since probably the night the league shut down.
This is what
right?
we're doing.
No, what?
This is what we're doing. That this is going to be such a huge game.
No, it is, because if you win this game,
Right.
you cement yourself as a 2 or a 3 seed.
Yeah. Right.
If you lose that game, you open the door for Phoenix to come back and steal the 3 seed in the final 10 games of the season. If you win that game, there's 5 games out in the loss column with 9 games left. It's over. There's no way for them to catch up. But for the Kings, for me, it's a big game. And I was comparing it to the Pelicans game the night that the league shut down, right? When we were sitting there waiting for the game to start, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. That was going to be this tremendous build-up game. Whoever won that game had a really good shot at coming away with the 8th seed, and the whole thing spun out. So
I hear you. I don't know that I'd agree, but I'd love them to come out and think that way. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be great if they have that mindset. But I don't know that it would fall under that category with due respect. I don't feel like it would be the same, but that's just the way I look at it.
All right, Brendan, what else you got for factor
Yeah,
cap?
Brenden, be the tiebreaker. Do you agree?
I understand both of your guys' points. I refuse to be the tiebreaker. I refuse to be the tiebreaker.
Jerk.
He's wearing an
Way to
upside
go,
down Giants
Sweden.
hat. Not Sweden, the Swiss.
Swiss, sorry.
Swiss.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. I failed geography.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's a lie. I didn't, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. Brendan, what do you got? Factor cap.
Factor cap. The Lakers would be favored over Sacramento in a round one matchup.
That's cap.
I'm gonna go cap too.
Really?
And you know why? Here's the thing. I mean, we're not even, they're not even in the play-in tournament right now. They're a half game out. I was going to kind of pose that question myself. Like, as much as for the past few weeks, we've talked about how it'd be the Warriors and the Lakers coming out of the postseason play-in tournament. And the Lakers have kind of shown the ability to, keep themselves outside of it. I know it's only a half game right now. They're kind of in sixth right as we stand right now, but I'm starting to doubt whether the Lakers will even get into the postseason play-in tournament.
Yeah, I mean, who knows who's going to get into the postseason play-in tournament? Like, there's so many teams that are still bunched up. Like what we talked about, like the Clippers are two games in the loss column ahead of the 12th seed, and aren't they still the 5 seed right now? Like, it's so wild and like squished. Yeah, they're a game up on Golden State. Golden State's a half game up on the Thunder and the Mavs. Those two teams are a half game up on the Timberwolves and the Jazz. Those two teams are a half game up on the Lakers and the Pelicans. The one team that we know that is not going to be there most likely is the Portland Trail Blazers, who have lost 6 in a row and said,
They're
"Hey,
done.
yeah,
They're
we're good. We're cashing out." But I still I think that's one of the interesting things, that the Kings have no idea who they're going to play in the first round if they're the 2 seed. If they're the 3 seed, they'll have a couple of days to think about it. And I think that there is a little bit of an advantage to that, of being able to game prep and sit there and know who you've got on Saturday, coming in, and it'll be at home. And so you'll know for sure like what it is you're facing. I don't know.
I think the Lakers would be favored. I think
Really?
What
it
if
depends.
LeBron's not playing?
Then that's different. And that's what I was about to say. It depends on. And I guess that is still TBD. But if LeBron James is there, if Anthony Davis is there, I think that Jared Vanderbilt, like we talked about size and switchability, you roll out those 3 guys. And I guess I don't know what else after that. I don't know about D'Angelo Russell, but say Malik Beasley and like Austin Reeves or something. And just 2 shooters, right? Or if you want to put D'Lo out there, like it worries me. And it really just comes down to it being LeBron and AD. I think that those 2 guys are right up there with the best players in the league when they're right. And that is a big if, but I think that any team could come out in that series. I would just expect the narrative to be that LA is favored.
I think it's interesting because, I mean, at this point, they're 35 and 37. Like, they're not a 40-win team. I don't think that they'll get to 500 on the season. And if they do, it's going to be like they'll get to 500. I just don't know. Like, they've had plenty of time where they were healthy and they weren't good. And that the whole entire roster is still, like, coming together and weirdly put together. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like, if the Kings are in that series, I don't think they're winning in 5, but I still would take them.
I could see anything happening in that series.
Yeah.
I would have no clue. I have
what's your belief?
Oh,
Let me ask
go
you
ahead.
both this. Give me a percentage. What's your belief that the Lakers are in the play-in tournament?
Like 80.
80?
50,
I think they're in there.
50-50 and even less than that. Like,
Yeah, James, you and I agree.
probably 25-30% that they make it through the play-in. Because even if they are in the play-in, they're the 10, or they're the 9 or the 10, which means they got to have 2 wins to get in. And one of those wins at this point, looks like it's going to have to come against a team like Minnesota, who might get healthy, but Golden State or Dallas. Like, there's some sketchy. Yeah, I don't know.
And
They are
also,
a game and a half out of 6. Like, they're
That's
not
true.
far.
Kings are still a
been that
game and
way
a half
for
out of 2.
over a month, though. I mean, it's been
They climbed up for a little while
Yeah,
there, and then
they
they
did.
had 2 tough losses recently. The Dallas and that Houston one was a horrible loss right when they had
Terrible
momentum
loss.
going.
I wonder too. Okay, you're in the postseason play-in tournament. Is LeBron playing?
In the play-in? Well, I
Correct.
mean, if LeBron's
Correct.
playing, he's playing. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to suit up. Like, we'll have to wait and see when he starts playing. Like, do we have any idea? Like, you saw the Zion thing, right? They're saying 2 weeks away for Zion. It sure does look like they're pulling
He's
the plug
always
on their season.
2 weeks away from being 2 weeks away.
Well, he's 2 weeks away from re-examination. He's not 2 weeks away from playing.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got, Brendan? Factor
Last
cap.
one. I, on a little plug, on my last King's Pulse, went through and did my all NBA teams with a buddy who covers the Celtics for an Eastern Conference perspective. And the question that I'm going to present to you guys is, will Damian Lillard make an all NBA team? And before you call me crazy, I know that he is averaging a ridiculous 32 points, and that by itself might be enough of an argument, right? And he's had his however many big games. But the 13 seed, and probably going to stay in the 13 seed, I initially came into it thinking Dame should be a lock and started to question myself. So I'm curious where you guys are at.
I don't think he's a lock for all NBA. However, I would expect him to be there.
I'm going to say no. I don't think he'll make it. I just, like, it's not like they have a bad team. They've just played bad. You know, they lost Nurkic for sure, but, like, outside of that,
Oh, he's back now, right?
yeah, Nurkic just got back.
And they suck.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a bad team, like, fully.
They lost
I
6
don't
straight.
I don't know why they're so bad. But, you know, like, they're a team that has Jeremy Grant, that has Anthony Simons, that, you know, they've got talent. I'm confused, I guess. And, like, is there been more hollow points then? Like, if I had to choose between him and Shea, I'm taking Shea.
Yeah.
And I don't think both of them make it. So,
Write him out on paper. What do you got?
I have, for guards, I went with
Yeah.
Luka Doncic, Donovan Mitchell for my first team.
yep.
Then I went with SGA, and I still did go Steph Curry.
Okay.
I know he's been out. By the way, I looked up the least amount of games played to make on a ballot last year was 55 for KD. He made second team. 56 for LeBron, made third. And John Morant, 57, made second team. So it's kind of the number that I was roughly going off of. And then third team, I ended up going with James Harden, who is putting up a nice 20 and 10, leading the league in assists, and De'Aaron Fox. Devin Booker was right there. Damian Lillard was right there. But it's tough. It's tough. And that's still leaving out guys like, you know, Ja, if he comes back, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson, like Kyrie Irving, and like I mentioned, Devin Booker, Dame Lillard. Like, there's a ridiculous amount of guards. There's going to be like 5 fan bases guaranteed to be pissed off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we've had this discussion whether Fox would make it or not. I mean, I think he's got. It sounds really weird, but I think he's got 10 games to prove it. So, like, I know it's a whole year award, but I think that this is a moment where if he's this good, if he's as good as he was coming out of the All-Star break here to finish the season, then he's got a really good shot. If not, I don't know. It's kind of a coin flip. Like, I don't believe that James Harden will be all NBA. But I mean, was he on the All-Star team?
No.
I don't think he was.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of the same people voting outside of the fans. I mean, the fans have a vote, but like media stuff, like, I don't know. I don't know that Harden gets that acclaim. Trey Young, I think people are like over at this point. I even think Atlanta might be over Trey Young at this point. Maybe I'm crazy there, but sort of seem like you lock up Bogdan and, you know, you got AJ Griffin coming up and you got DeJounte Murray. Like maybe you're going to look a different way. I don't know.
It is tough to sit here and try to lay it out, though. It's not easy.
I think the more you try to talk yourself out of it, the more you go, Dame Lillard will probably be there. I mean, it's just tough. I mean, the stats are there. I know the overall record isn't. He's been really incredible this year. It was kind of the same thing I was saying around the All-Star break, which was if you don't think he's an All-Star, you're not watching Portland. I mean, you're not paying attention because he's been unbelievable. And when you put up unbelievable numbers, you get rewarded. I don't care what your record looks like. And that's, going back to the old discussion we used to have, James, is like DeMarcus Cousins is an all-star based off the numbers he's putting up, even if it happens to be on a shitty team. The numbers are incredible. And at that time, he was among the best, if not the best big man in the NBA. And you could say that about Dame Lillard being at least in the top 5 guards in the NBA, which is probably a conversation to be had. And if he falls in the top 5, then he's likely an all-NBA player.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough just because of the record. So, and because, Shea is there, who's got similar stats, but is on a better team. And it's not a hugely better team.
And most people didn't think that OKC would even be in the position that they're in. So you have a difference maker there.
Okay.
Are you done? De'Aaron's whole argument just goes off. I mean, not his whole argument, but the thing that bolsters him into like the conversation in my mind is obviously just the clutch numbers, right? He's averaging the most points in the clutch. He's shooting 53% in the clutch. And I think to James's point, like, I don't know that in my mind, it's like keep up post All-Star game performance when it comes to total point scoring, but have a couple more of those big clutch moments. And I think that could really help. And by the way, like Joel Embiid is doing a lot in the clutch as of late. It's like, I know that it's kind of felt so like De'Aaron's Ward in my mind. Yeah, but there's other guys there.
And the other thing I would say too is I feel much like I do around the All-Star game, which is even though this isn't a coach's award, I think that a lot of people will feel that they have Sacramento represented in the All-NBA team with Domantas Sabonis, and that will take away the need or the desire to represent the Kings in the All-NBA team with De'Aaron Fox. Like, I think
I get you,
but
my counter would be this: they didn't give him an All-Star bid, and the Kings are still there. They're still the number 3 seed,
right?
And so the Kings have shown that they weren't fluky, that they weren't like that. You weren't overrepresenting them at the All-Star game.
No, and yeah, but that's not my point. Like I'm saying, I feel like they'll have the Sacramento representation with Domantas Sabonis, who most would agree is the singular best player on the Kings, and I feel like he hurts De'Aaron Fox when you start to talk about those type of achievements, and when you're looking at team success, like I feel like they're going to go, well, we're not going to have 2 Kings in there. You know what I'm saying?
I get you. I would just say if the Kings were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the West, that I would consider that to be like you can't have 2 of them. But when you're the 3rd,
what'll be interesting to see is does Ja Morant take a hit based off of recent
he's got
struggles?
Right? I think he will be left out.
Well, and the thing is, all of this is subjective, right? Like some people are going to agree with Sean here, some people are going to agree with James when it comes to who's voting, and that's what makes this so complicated, right?
Yep.
Well, and just know your history a little bit, like the stars get rewarded, man. They just do.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. Okay. I don't think I guess we could do a business of basketball on, did this last couple of days change?
You can't pose the question before you do the sounder. How dare you?
Okay. Let's get to the business of basketball.
There you go.
Did this weekend, the way that the last 2 games happened, Did they change your thoughts on the win total, on what you thought that this team would do? Or like, do you think that like they're going to be just fine, okay, and like this is because I mean this thing could snowball quickly if to like 4 games if they get on a bad run here, if they're not, if they're winded, back to back here coming up. But yeah, I don't know. What's your? Would you change your win total projection? I think I said 51, and I think did both of you guys say 50?
I said
initially
50 reluctantly. I went to 49 more so, but you talked me into 50.
I think I was the same. We might have done this twice. I think I initially said 49 and then jumped it up to 50. Right now, I feel good about 49. I feel like, they'd have to go 6-4 in these final stretches, and Portland twice, San Antonio. Give me one of Utah, Minnesota, or 2 of the Utah, Minnesota, New Orleans, Dallas, Golden State. Like, I think 6-4 is reasonable, and 50 is still within reach. I just don't know that I'm expecting it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't. To answer your question, I don't think these 2 games have done anything to make me change my win total. I have said all along, like, look, 45, not all along, but like over the past few weeks, it's like just get to 45. Like, you keep the foot on the pedal, get to 45. Not to say you take it off, but get to 45, and then that should be your goal. And it was an attainable goal. That should be something that you have your eye on the prize for. And the closer you get to it, maybe there is a stumble along the way. We've clearly seen them lose 2 straight. Get to 45, then have that conversation. Like, okay, how many can you win? If it takes you a week to get to 45, if it takes you a week to get another two wins, that will definitely change the calculus.
Yeah, we're running out of games. Yeah, and since I asked a question, I think they can still win 50. I don't think they can win. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can't win 51 or 52. But I
what
still
if they
think
finish? What if they finish with 46? How do you feel about the team at that point?
4-6 in the last.
Right.
I mean, that's like,
and I don't think that will happen. By the way, I'm just wondering. What I'm trying to get a read on from people. I've asked a lot of people in private conversations, how much do you like? If you, Brenden, you were talking about the way the Nuggets have stumbled of late. Like, the Kings haven't done that since November. They haven't done that even since really take it beyond the 3 games, really since they started the season. If they have a moment like that, like, how fragile is the belief in this team of where they're wrapping up? You know what I mean? And if it happens weeks before you start a potential playoff series, no matter who it is against, how does that change your belief in the team and what they're doing? For me, if I'm being honest, it doesn't change really anything so long as they're healthy.
I don't want to see them tail off completely and run out of gas here, because that, to me, it would be counter to who they've been all season,
But
and
4
that
and
would
6,
show
you
me
think
that they're running out of gas.
Do you feel 4 and 6 would be a sign of that?
Yeah, because they got
that...
6 games against sub 500 teams.
Right.
6. I mean, that's a lot. And then another one that's 500 and another one that's a game over 500. I mean, that's 8. That's you've got to find a way not to split that. You have to at least win 5 of those, and then give a fight against some of these against the other 2 teams you got to face, the Suns and the Nuggets, the last game of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, the way I wouldn't worry about 4 and 6 is if, like, say these last 2 games don't have that much meaning and they rest some guys, right? And then throw those out the window. But I do really think that, like, it's important for teams to look at what form teams are in when they come into the postseason, rather than the whole body of work. Like, that, it's not that doesn't factor in, but I think that you need to be playing, or ideally you're playing your best basketball going into the postseason. You're in a rhythm. Like, if it's just defensive struggles, whatever. If they keep having like 20-point quarters, which, again, I think these 2 nights are outliers, right? The Utah and Boston. But if I see 6 more 20-point quarters in these next like 10 games, or maybe that's too low of a number, but if it starts to be offensive struggles, something that was different than what we've seen previously, then I would have concern. But I think already because I don't have super high expectations going into the postseason, it makes the question a little tricky. But I do think that it matters how you're playing going into the postseason.
Man, look at me. I'm like Johnny Optimism of the group all of a sudden. That should
Mr.
scare you.
Lower expectations.
Brendan has no idea what that is.
He has no idea what that is.
I just smile and wave.
Yeah, you do.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
I know that.
Madagascar.
I got that one.
Penguins.
Yeah, I thought you would have seen that one.
I have seen that one. Or you're not talking Madagascar. You're talking whatever you were saying.
Madagascar.
Oh, okay.
Madahuhar? No, Ascar.
We gotta get Brendan another. He's got to deliver on the movie assignment at some point.
I don't think
Very
he's
I
ever
told you,
seen
when
one.
I watch a movie, the next one will be Life. That has been the case since I've said that. I have not watched a movie since we have talked about Life.
That's incredible. How do you avoid watching a movie? Because I mean, like, I don't know.
He stares at Jemias Ramsey all day, staring at him in his room right there.
Lovingly. And how has Jemias Ramsey done this season?
It's a good question, Mr. Ham.
He had to look it up. Hey, how were you able to
I'm
contain your
definitely gonna look it up.
enthusiasm when Keon Ellis got in the game last night?
Enthusiasms.
Well, he didn't do much. The Utah game
No.
was maybe a
Well,
little different.
He got a up close experience of what it was like to go up against Jason Tatum, and it didn't
Yeah.
go. Jason Tatum ended up with an and one dunk and I think 2 dunks actually, but
Why was Jason Tatum in the game?
I don't know. Sorry for that. That was my stupid phone. I don't know. I really don't. I think they were trying to get him
To
some
35 or
stat.
something?
I don't know.
Yeah, like I was like, why is he? The Kings waved the white flag, and then he put up another 5 points.
I mean, there was still
what did
it was like 5:47 I think left in the game when Mike Brown emptied the bench.
Was he
Mike
trying to get
Brown's
to 30? Because he broke Larry Bird's record for the most 30-point games in a Celtics season. So maybe he was below that.
He was at 31, and then he kept going and got 36. So he had the and one to put him at 33. So maybe it was at 30. No. I messed up the stat at the end because I missed his last bucket because I thought he was out of the game. Okay, so let's wrap this thing up. We've got, for all of you out there who are still watching, please give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. Off the Record with the Kings Beat Virtual Happy Hour, Part 12, National Voice, is tomorrow with Sam Amick from 5:30 to 7:30. That is Thursday, March 23rd, I think it's the date. It's going to be a blast. You have to be a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat in order to get the invitation, but you should be there. Even if you just show up and go, I just want to check out the happy hour. It's only $7 to sign up. And if you hate it, then don't, whatever. But it's going to be a good show. Outside of that, do you guys have any final thoughts?
Stockton plays a game at Golden One Center tomorrow, and finding out Scalabissier, wow,
Labissiere.
help me.
Scalabissiere.
Labissiere? I had it. I don't know why I second guessed myself. I'm
Scalabissiere.
overthinking after the.
Yeah, Labissiere.
Labissiere.
And Kenneth Fareed, by the way, going to be on the
Manimal.
opposing side, which is interesting. But yeah, kind of looking forward to that. Going to be at Golden One all day. So I don't
That's
know.
interesting that they're on the same team. Could there be 2 more opposing, like different types of players? Like overly aggressive and a guy who isn't known to be super physical?
Kenneth Fareed is averaging 30 minutes, by the way, and 5 offensive rebounds a game.
Do you remember what his nickname was?
The man.
Brendan? There you go. Didn't know if he was that old. If it was, he's been in the
how
league
old
a
is
while.
Kenneth
Well,
Fareed now? And
I'm gonna
33.
guess 30. Oh, okay. I was gonna go
My bad.
higher. Nope,
why did
that's fine.
he?
I was gonna go higher.
I'm still confused how he ended up out of the league for all this time.
We can't shoot.
Got out of the league at like 27 though, 27,
He's a
28.
little undersized. Yeah.
I mean, he was
think
on Team
it's-
USA.
Fours
Yeah.
like him don't really exist anymore, right? And I don't know if he's big enough to play a 5. Maybe
Oh no,
he
he's not
is.
big enough to play 5. No, he's like 6'6", 6'7". Yeah, he's not that big of a dude. Well, I hope I get to see Scal because Scal's my dude. I was gonna go
Same.
to Haiti with Scal. Like
I was not.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to go to Haiti with Scal. He invited me to go to Haiti with him on his first trip back after the earthquake. He hadn't been back since he was like 14, and he fired his agent right before he was supposed to go. And the NBA said, yeah, we're not going to send security for that because he has no point of contact. And so NBC said, nope, we ain't sending you. I'm like, all right. It's a no-fly country. Like it's on the don't go there like list from the U.S., like non-safe travel country. Okay, Sean, did you have any final thoughts?
Not really. I mean, I think I would just say I think at Sac State, their women's basketball coach who took the program to the tournament for the first time ever, Mark Campbell, who's done so many good things there, is now off to TCU. So within a year's time, you have some really record-breaking things that Sac State Athletics is doing with their terrible facilities that need to be upgraded in a major, major way. And even though you're losing a coach like Troy Taylor, like you did in football to Stanford, and now Mark Campbell to TCU, these are huge things. This is a great thing for the program, and just man, these guys have been able to do record-breaking things for the program in 2 sports now, and hopefully, they can get some of those facilities. They need an arena so bad. I mean, 1,000 people to watch college basketball is just a joke. So I'd like to see some of the fruits of their labor kind of trickle over, and hopefully they can get some deep pockets and some help along the way to get some facilities. But, they've got a nice coach, Andy Thompson, taking over football. He's already within the program. We'll see what the women's basketball coach looks like, but good stuff for them.
It is good stuff. It's hard when a team has success. Even we saw, like, Fairleigh Dickinson pick up the win, and then Rick Pitino jumps ship from Iona to go to St. John's, and Fairleigh Dickinson guy jumps into Iona's job. That's kind of the way college basketball works. There are these stepping stones.
Yep.
And if Sac State can start being on a stepping stone path, that'd be pretty cool. Because then they could get good coaches that are heading to bigger and better programs. Hopefully one of them sticks around long enough to help get those arenas built. That would be nice. Okay. So I guess that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. I don't think I have any final thoughts. It's raining. That's about it. Going to take Miss Ham out to dinner.
Hey, where are you going?
We were thinking about going to Josephine's, but you guys pushed us back a little bit because you both needed evening. But not before I went on the radio, after I went on the radio. So it's reservations only unless you can get there early and get at the bar. And so now I'm like, I don't think we're going to be able to get a bar seat. So we have to get the turnover. We might be able to slide in there and get in. I don't know. So
I think I'm going to see Scream 6 tonight.
Oh.
It's kind of on the docket, so might be doing that.
Well, maybe Brenden should watch live.
How many is too many? What, 6 of a movie? God.
3 was 3. They shouldn't have gone past 3, but this one's getting some good reviews, man.
At least it's not like Fast and Furious.
I think there's another one, right?
Or whatever.
I think there's already plans for another Scream.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Slasher films are fun.
We will be back. Today's Wednesday. We'll be back later in the week. We might have to do another Sunday pod. I don't know, because the Kings play on Friday and Saturday. And we like to kind of break these things up into 2 distinct podcasts, 2 segments of the week. But we'll figure it out, and we'll get back to you guys on when we're going to have another podcast. Thursday, of course, is the happy hour. Join us. It's going to be a blast. Become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com and you can upgrade there. I guess I do have a final thought. We just added comment section, so now you can go make comments on everything that's posted on the Kings Beat. So that's really cool. But yeah, all right, that's going to do it. So for Box 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you very soon. Wait. Stop. There was one other question. There was a question from a fan. I told him holy cow, it popped into my head.
You screwed up.
I just remembered. I just remembered.
Brenden, click off. Go away.
Click off. Everyone leaves.
Slam the laptop.
One last question. Why is De'Aaron Fox not in the running for most improved player? Or do you think he will be?
Because Lauri Markkanen exists.
Sean?
There's just
That's a
better
drop the mic.
candidates.
Like, if I could pull this thing off and drop the mic, that's probably why. Sean?
I don't know. That would be my answer. I don't know. I think because he hasn't taken, while it's been a big jump forward, he was already a upper echelon type player. So you don't really see somebody going from a mediocre or to a fringe or to a playing a certain role to all of a sudden becoming a more established role in this regard, where he was already such a good player that the leap forward he takes won't be comparable to somebody taking a major step forward on a different team.
Yeah, the statistical difference between who he is today and who he was 2 seasons ago really isn't that great. But the fact that the team is winning and all that stuff, you know, that's one thing. But like the leap he's taken forward isn't that big of a statistical leap. And so
there is like 5% in, I think, like field goal percentage and 3-point percentage both right now. And like that stands out. But it's like these other guys where it's Lauri Markkanen or like SGA or Jalen Brunson.
Right.
Like,
going
admittedly,
from
Tyrese
20,
Halliburton
yeah,
too. Like,
yeah, you're right. Going from 20 to 25 points is one thing, but that didn't happen this year. Or if he would have gone from 25 to 30, then maybe. But and the last thing I'd point out too is that he was already in the running for most improved player, and he came in third. He was one of the finalists, if you guys remember, and I think Pascal Siakam won it that year. And Fox wasn't too happy about the whole, like the way it played out.
It wasn't?
So, no, I don't think so.
Because that's not really an award people covet. I want to be the most improved player of the year.
Yeah. You know why?
It's a trophy, man.
I mean, at some point you weren't very good, and then all of a sudden you became good. So, all right, that's going to do it.
No breaking news coming in. No.
I remembered,
stop the
Roy.
presses moment.
That's it. I forgot that I had promised him that we would discuss it on the previous podcast. I forgot. It hit me right at the last second.
What if he just stopped listening when you started the outro?
It's amazing.
It's like,
Then he missed
this
it.
goddamn James Ham forgot again. I'm never
He
asking
forgot
another
again.
question.
He'll shake his fist at me.
You know what? Yeah, just come to the live show or to the to
The happy hour.
happy hour, and you can get
Yeah.
your question in there.
That's right.
It's
All
not that
right.
hard.
We'll see you guys tomorrow on the happy hour.
Yeah, we
Adios.
will.